This is a car we've been waiting a very long time to drive. This is the Zeekr 7X, one of the most hotly anticipated rivals for the Tesla Model Y and the BYD C-Line 7. More than 2,000 Aussies have placed money down on this car without ever having taken a test drive. Today we're going to find out, is it any good? Is it worth the wait? And is it something you should be looking at in this segment? We're getting a first drive here in closed conditions before we get it on public roads in the coming months. Let's get started. The Zeekr 7X is available in 3 model grades, starting with a rear-wheel drive, priced from $57,900 before on-road costs. That's a fair bit cheaper than the $65,000 to $70,000 initially estimated for this car, and it's $1,000 cheaper than the most affordable Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive. The long-range rear-wheel drive adds a larger battery pack and a few more features for $63,900 before on-road costs, while the flagship performance all-wheel drive, again with more features and more power, starts from $72,900 before on-road costs. Standard features on the base grade include 19-inch alloy wheels, LED headlights, a 16-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a 13-inch instrument display, and tri-zone climate control. While the performance all-wheel drive gains 21-inch wheels, adaptive air suspension, Napa leather trim, and more. Exclusive to the flagship performance are power-operated doors, which open and close at the touch of a button. That's a feature that's pretty much unheard of at this price. Size-wise, the 7X is pretty similar to a Tesla Model Y, a C-Line 7, an XPeng G6, the other cars you're probably looking at in this mid-size EV category. 3 models in the range, up to the top of the range performance all-wheel drive, and a choice of different wheel sizes depending on the model you go for. Some things worth calling out on this car: no upper light bar on Australian delivered models you might see on some of the photos from China of this car. We sort of have a light bar with different messages you can print along the front there. Our cars, which have to do Euro NCAP and ANCAP requirements, don't get that there on the front end. Pop-out door handles, you've got an option of a silver roof on the top spec performance model. This is obviously a pre-production car. Some of the specs don't necessarily line up, but this color will be available on the final thing. I quite like the design. What do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. Inside the 7X, it's certainly a more conventional and perhaps sporty experience compared to, say, a Tesla Model Y in this class. 2 screens, one for the infotainment as well as one for the driver's display. And there is more of perhaps a cockpit vibe than what you get in a Model Y or an XPeng. You can see that driver display is sort of shaped around the size of the steering wheel. Nice steering wheel itself, fits in my hand quite well. Nice leather material and pretty good buttons on there as well that are relatively easy to read. The driver's display, again, is a nice size, high resolution, pretty customizable as well. And obviously you can control it through the buttons on this steering wheel. Your gear shifter is up here on the stalk, as with many cars in this class. And overall, it is a pretty nice experience from where the driver is sitting inside this car. This center screen, 16 inches across, is pretty fast and pretty snappy. Obviously, a lot of the car's functions do run through this display. So your climate controls are along the bottom. But obviously things like your multimedia, your vehicle settings, your driver assistance settings all go through this display. You do get some physical controls in this car. You can see you've got a volume dial down here, as well as things like opening your glove box, which obviously does run through this button rather than just having a latch on the front, which again is very common in a car in this class, at least in 2025. But it's a pretty good screen, pretty quick, quite snappy. You've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto there as well. And obviously no shortage of menus you've got to learn and sort of figure out once you start to own this car and start to live with it on a day-to-day basis. Good adjustment in them as well, 14-way on the driver's side and 10-way on the passenger side. Again, pretty supple, pretty comfortable. You've got heated and ventilation in these as well, depending on the model you go for in the range. So not much to complain about there. In terms of storage, you've got a pretty deep center console bin here. The door, or I should say the lid for this, opens 2 ways, so towards the passenger or towards the driver. And it does go pretty deep there, so you can probably fit quite a bit down there as well. 2 cup holders that are obscured by this sort of sliding tray that does feel quite nice and quite premium, I have to say. And also plenty of room under here, under the center console, where your USB ports do live. A bit hard to access while you're driving. That's something you can level at, say, a BYD or an XPeng in this category as well. Dual 50-watt wireless phone chargers, as well as things like ambient lighting, keyless entry and start, dual zone climate control, all the kind of things you'd expect in a car at this price. You certainly aren't left wanting for equipment. The materials are also pretty high-end for a car at this price. Obviously nice, soft leather-like surfaces on the doors, the dashboard as well as some nice sort of material that looks like suede. It kind of feels like cheap fake leather, but it kind of looks a bit of a texture to it, which is nice. And again, not the last word in luxury, but still it does feel pretty premium, and it doesn't feel like you're getting a lot of scratchy surfaces around the place, which is obviously nice for a car in this class, especially at this price point. Space in the back of the 7X is pretty good, as you can see. This seat is set up for where I drive. I'm 186 centimeters tall, or 6'1", and I got loads of knee room here. Good headroom as well as a decent amount of toe room under the front seat. Now, the floor is not completely flat. It's pretty close to flat. As you can see, this floor mat does do a decent job of disguising that. And pretty good on amenities as well. I've got air vents in the door pillars. I've even got power operated sunshades in the rear windows of this performance spec at the top of the model range. You can see, put those back down. Obviously got a normal window switch there as well. Electric door releases, pretty common on electric cars these days. There is a manual release up here in the doors, but it's a little bit difficult to find. It does require a bit of contortion from your arm there, but obviously, hopefully you won't have to use that in a car like this. Map pockets here on the front seats. Got a fold down center armrest there with a pair of cup holders. Overall, it is a pretty comfy space back here. Nice materials, both on the seat as well as the doors. Overall, a seriously roomy cabin in the back here. A couple of things worth calling out. I have under seat storage trays here. So some more room under that rear seat bench, as well as power reclining rear seats back here with buttons on the side. You can't see it here. You can probably see it down there. Very similar to a new Tesla Model Y. And these rear seats are heated as well. Under the power tailgate of this car, you do have a pretty large load space in the back of the 7X. Perhaps not as roomy as, say, a Tesla Model Y, but it's definitely bigger than, say, a Sea Line 7 or an Xpeng G6. You got pretty large load space as it is, but a bit more space under the floor here in terms of putting your cables and things like that. As well as some more space at the back of this two-piece boot floor. Got lights, got bag hooks, as well as got a 12-volt socket in the boot here. And it is a pretty practical space and a pretty good load space for the class overall. That's not enough. You've got some more room under the front bonnet of this car, another 60 litres or so. Good for charging cables, shopping bags, things like that that you might want to use on a regular basis. And overall, pretty impressed with the load space in the 7X. Powering the rear-wheel drive grades are one single 310 kilowatt, 440 newton meter rear electric motor, good for 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in a claim 6 seconds. The entry grade uses a 75 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery, good for 480 kilometers of claimed driving range in WLTP testing, and 450 kilowatt DC fast charging for a claimed 10 to 80% recharge in 13 minutes, according to Zeekr Europe. That dual motor flagship offers 475 kilowatts and 710 newton meters, good for 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.8 seconds. All right, behind the wheel of the Zeekr 7X. Now, we've only had a pretty short drive on this initial preview. A bit of time on the racetrack in the performance model, as well as the rear-wheel drive. There's also some time on sort of more dirt and sort of country style roads here in this all-wheel drive one. And overall, it has been a pretty impressive SUV so far, based on the time we've had behind the wheel. Obviously, performance in the dual motor model is pretty good. In it right now, put my foot down, floor it, and yep, definitely no shortage of grunt there. 475 kilowatts, I should say. 0 100 in 3.8, so it's definitely not a slow car by any stretch. And it does come on quite smoothly. It doesn't always push you in the back of the seat unless you put your foot to the floor. And even the cheaper ones in the range, 310 kilowatts rear-wheel drive, are still pretty approachable in the way they deliver their power. Now, in terms of ride, it's hard to judge the way the suspension deals with bumps around town, obviously, because there aren't really any to hit on this drive. But it does feel pretty soft, pretty compliant when you put the adaptive air suspension in its softer, more compliant modes, I suppose. The adaptive air definitely feels more confident at higher speeds than the basic suspension tune, the passive dampers in the rear-wheel drive one. It just feels more confidence-inspiring, more settled at higher speeds, and a bit less body roll, a bit less motion in the car, which is definitely good. But of course, that is exclusive to that top-of-the-range model. Now, in terms of the handling, the steering is pretty accurate, pretty light. You can add a bit more weight in sport mode, but this is still on the lighter side, which is good, obviously, for around town driving. Again, hard to assess noise, hard to assess how it'll do on a course-chip country road in Australia, but our first impressions are pretty positive. It's nice to drive, visibility is pretty decent, rear window is definitely bigger than something like a Tesla Model Y, but door mirrors are a good size. It all feels like a pretty nice and pretty comfortable SUV to drive, though of course things like efficiency in the real world, ride comfort, will have to wait till we get this car on the public road in the coming months. So we're on a bit of an off-road course here now, obviously not the car's comfort zone, but still good to see how it does. Steep ascent, you can feel the car doing its thing. Not too much, no traction control there, but it has used it on some other courses we've done. And it all feels pretty composed and pretty settled. Obviously, dual motors, the electric motors give you the ability to be more precise with the way you sort of apportion the torque and manage it and so forth. Obviously no low range, it's not a proper off-road car, but for a family SUV, it does do a pretty admirable job in this scenario. All right, going into a bit of a mud crossing here. And again, out of the car's comfort zone, but it's not, goes in, wade's all right. Keep left, up a little steep ascent at the end. And, well, a bit of traction control, bit of thinking, and it did it. All right, there you go. Pretty good for a pretty normal sort of family SUV. Obviously air suspension lets you raise it up and get a pretty significant amount of ground clearance for a car in this class. If you want to do some mild off-roading, it's not a bad choice, at least compared to some of the other cars in this category. So there you have it, the Zeekr 7X. This has only been a pretty brief first drive of this car, but has left us impressed with this package on the whole. Pretty roomy cabin, loads of tech, loads of features, and quite luxurious in terms of its presentation there as well, especially for what is a pretty sharp price in this segment. Big boot, and it is pretty nice to drive as well, at least in this performance environment. But of course, we'll have to wait till we get on the road to test ride comfort, how it handles the daily grind, as well as driving range and recharging times in the real world. But there's a lot to look forward to here, and I've got to say, this is a pretty impressive mid-size electric SUV. If you enjoyed this video, why not give us a like? And to watch us compare 4 other mid-size EVs in this class, the Model Y, the G6, the C-Line 7, as well as the Volkswagen ID4, click up there to watch our full comparison review.